Back in 2007 when I first got my GameCube, I bought a game called The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. After about a year, I had finally completed it and then sold my GameCube. However, I kept my Zelda game and memory card. Just recently I bought another GameCube, and so I decided to play Twilight Princess again. First thing I noticed was a dark gray decayed Kakariko village when I loaded a file. It had distorted music with no NPCs in sight, and you could see rain and lightning, and even hear a loud Ganon laugh in the background that was really, and I mean really, high-pitched. I looked around for a bit and I came across the graveyard, and so I kept on walking until I got to that hole where you crawl through to get to the other side when you first get the sword armor. And so, guess what I saw? I saw that Zora child just standing in a distance looking toward Link as if he were waiting for me. I walked up to him, and as I began to get closer, the graveyard music became really distorted and reversed and got louder, and louder, and louder, and boom. That's when it happened. The screen went blank, and I could hear that Ganon laugh once again. Then a message come on the screen and said, "Ganon is watching you." I dropped my soda and pulled the plug as fast as I could, but the game was still on. I even unplugged it from the TV, but still the game was visible. So I unplugged my TV and it still didn't work, and the only thing I could do was change the channel. I turned on my DirecTV box and noticed that every channel had the same words as the game did, with the message reading "Ganon is watching you." So by then, I was tired and decided to catch up on some sleep. The next day, I ate breakfast, then decided to give the game another go. The game loaded as usual, same intro, everything. Once I loaded the file though, I appeared in a different location. I believe the location was Hyrule Field. The only thing different was that everything was pitch black, and the only way to see was to use the lantern, so I used it. As I came closer to what was to be Hyrule Castle, I noticed that the castle was starting to mold, decay, and fall apart. Soon after I left the area, I kept running until I fell into a large hole. Strangely, I never remember that hole. Inside was a bunch of bones, old bodies, and decayed walls over the years. It seems as if Hyrule had aged since the last time I played the game. I then continued to discover the area. I then started to see a white light in the distance, so I drew closer to see what it was. I started to hear loud music playing, which kept getting louder until I reached the light. The music sounded like the reversed version of the Hyrule Field theme song. All of a sudden, the screen turned white, and it stayed like that for about at least 30 seconds. Then I heard the music that plays whenever you defeat Ganon on the last and final boss fight, and Zan appears on the screen once again and snaps his neck. Only when he snaps it, it looked like it had frozen, but just played over and over like a broken record. Eventually, it went to a blank screen, and another message came up, saying "We have been forgotten for 3 years, all thanks to you Nick, my name. You never played the game for 3 whole years. You never played for 3 years Nick. 3 years, 3 years." Then the game crashed, so I decided to give it a break until later that day. So later I continued playing once again, and it brought me right back where I left off, which was weird because I didn't even save. All of a sudden the room became lit. It looked like the Goron mines, only all the magma has turned to stone, and everyone had died except for Link over that 3-year time period. There was a door in the distance, so I went to open it. Inside there were bodies laying everywhere. One body looked like what was to be a corpse of Zelda. The other 4 were Ganon, the Sora child, Leah, and Colin. All of them were corpses as well. It really made me feel sad inside, as it didn't even have that Zelda feel anymore. It felt as if Link were trapped in a horror game. When I went over to the Sora child, that distorted and reversed music played again just like last time with the graveyard. Only this time, the room became pitch black again. Only thing I could see was Link. Suddenly, the room was lit again, only it wasn't the same room. I started to become confused as if I had amnesia. Then I heard a crying sound, and it sounded like Link too. The crying sounded very realistic, and lasted a good 20 minutes. So I turned the camera around, and Link made that face like he does in that weird-ass cutscene. Only this time, blood was pouring from his eyes and mouth. His tunic became drenched in blood. Link collapsed onto the floor, with a pool full of blood next to him. The screen then faded to black, and instead of game over, it said the end, and the console turned itself off. I was so scared when I saw Link like that. Oh my god, it was the worst thing I had ever seen. I went out for a walk, and I came back later that night. I looked to see where the game went, but it was nowhere in sight. Then I turned around, and Iridium was in front of me. Then I woke up. It was all a dream. I was just glad it wasn't real. I was then tempted to turn the console on and play. I loaded the file and it brought me back to that very room that was in my dream. Link just laying there still in a pool of blood. I felt sick and had to vomit all over my pillow next to me. Only my vomit was dark red. Must have been Kool-Aid, or blood. Link then tried to get up from the pool of blood, but collapsed onto the ground once again. This time, you could see his spine sticking out of his back. I became so frightened that I had to turn the console off. Ever since then, I have yet to play the game. It's been at least a week or so since it happened.